Sunday that he will sell his interest in the team, citing a, quote, inappropriate and offensive email he sent in 2012. The email read in part, "I have told them I want some white cheerleaders, and while I don't care what the color of the artist is, I want the music to be music familiar to a 40-year-old white guy if that's our season ticket demo. I've also balked when every fan picked out of a crowd to shoot shots in some timeout contest is black, and I've even complained that the kiss cam is too black." Levinson said in a statement he was angry at himself and called it inflammatory nonsense. He said the email included cliched assumptions about fans' interests and stereotypes. He said he voluntarily reported the email to the NBA this July. Commissioner Adam Silver issued a statement acknowledging Levinson's decision and that the views were unacceptable and against NBA principles. Stephen A., your reaction?
It's unfortunate, kind of sad, to be quite honest with you, that we live in a world where some of these things are still said and felt and believed. I particularly took issue with, I have the email right in front of me from Levinson that he wrote. And in it, there's a sentence that really stood out that I thought to me was arguably the most damning. And it says, "My theory is that the black crowd scared away the whites, and there are simply not enough affluent black fans to build a significant season ticket base." When you make statements like that, it's not just black folks that should be offended. As far as I'm concerned, I'm waiting to hear, and I can't wait until I do my radio show later on today, Skip, on Sirius XM. I can't wait to hear what white Southerners feel, because he basically labeled them as folks that are scared of black people.
That's true.
You know, you were speaking for them. Now, this dude is one of 6 major owners. They have various owners, but the 6 major owners for the Atlanta Hawks, 3 are based out of Atlanta, 3 more are based out of D.C. He's based out of D.C., lives in the same neighborhood as David Falk, super agent to Michael Jordan years ago. Is friends with David Falk, who also represents the GM, Danny Ferry, who brought in Elton Brand, who's also represented by David Falk. So not that he has anything to do with this.
Yep.
I'm just pointing out that the man is connected to people in the NBA, and that has a lot to do with why he ultimately became one of the owners in 2004, 2005. Keep in mind, however, that while we talk about this, we have an obligation to make sure, to try to make sense out of all of this, because to me, what Donald Sterling did is entirely different than what happened here.
Yep.
Donald Sterling was spewing rhetoric and, you know, racial rhetoric because he was upset that his mistress was being seen with black people. Quote Donald Sterling, "Why do you need to be around black people? What does that do for you?" Etc. And then called out Magic Johnson. This, regardless of how foolish, how incendiary and inflammatory Levinson sounds, it's about business with him. That's what he was talking about here. He was talking about the white male demographic, which he labeled the primary demo for the NBA, because they're the ones that spend the most on season tickets, okay? The 35 to 55-year-old. Why are they not coming to our game? Why is 70% of our crowd base African American? Why is 90% of the club African American? He's saying if we want to make more money, we want to build our season ticket base, we've got to make sure a little bit more diversity on the other side comes into play. In the club, in the arena, the cheerleaders, all black. Maybe there should be a few others that are cheerleaders. Now, regardless of how that sounds, and I'm here to tell you, didn't come out right at all. He comes across as incredibly insensitive and ignorant.
Yep.
I am somebody who draws a distinction between ignorance and racist. You see what I'm saying? I draw that distinction. And I found his statements to be, to some degree, more ignorant than anything else. I do understand how you can look at it, because I also, again, I read what I was uncomfortable with, and I stand by that. It was uncomfortable, but I'm bringing all of that up to say, if it were not for the Donald Sterling fiasco, I believe an apology and a press conference would have been more than enough for him to get by this incident. But because of what happened with Donald Sterling, the heightened level of sensitivity has kicked in, and as a result, you have to eradicate this at every turn.
Okay.
That is my belief.
You know far more about this issue than I know. So I'm going to defer to you on these points that you just made.
Sure.
And I do respect them. I must say that I'm hearing 2 issues here. I'm hearing a Levinson issue and I'm hearing a Danny Ferry issue as it pertains to what was reported as he read a scouting report that contained an offensive and racist statement, correct?
That's what has been reported.
Okay,
that's not what I heard.
Okay, that's not what you heard. But that's a level of concern for me deeper than even Levinson, because I understand what you say about ignorance. I don't understand everything that he said. I'm going to follow up on that in just a second. But this other thing, this is egregious. This is over the line. If in a scouting report, and I don't know if that means that it came from a scout, or what, I don't know. But I just want to throw it out there that if there's a racist and offensive comment in that report, and that was the flashpoint that started this whole investigation, correct? Okay. That's the even greater concern than the Levinson statements. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair because you're talking about black players being scouted and dissected, not just from a physical prowess or their talents that they bring to the table, not even just towards their personality, but ethnicity is playing a role because there are stereotypes attached to preconceived notions attached to them.
This makes me very uncomfortable. Right. Okay, now back to the one line that jumped out at you in the email. So help me out here. In Atlanta, Georgia, I don't know the demographic as well as you would know
54% black.
Thank you.
At least according to the latest census report that I read.
So why do you have to market to the, what did you say the age range was?
35 to 55 white men.
Why do you have to market to them?
40-year-old white men.
Are you telling me there aren't enough affluent black members of the Atlanta community who couldn't support this team as season ticket holders?
I think what he's saying is that they're not the ones spending the kind of money that the 35 to 55-year-old white male demographic is known to spend, not to mention the fact that you have to remember one of the things that he said, and I don't know if it's factually correct, but in his email he alluded to the Washington Wizards because he was talking about the team in the nation's capital where he's at, and obviously Prince George County, very affluent black folks in that area, but they still make up 15%, approximately 15% of the Wizards audience.
Why
I don't know.
Yeah. Why don't they buy tickets? Because they can buy. They're capable of buying.
Say they don't.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't know.
You may have more white folks in the suburbs, Virginia and what have you, that come to the games.
Okay. So in the big picture here, we have an Atlanta Hawks franchise that ranked 28th in league attendance out of 30 teams
last season and 25th on average over the last 10 years.
Okay. And over the last 7 seasons, these Hawks have made the playoffs, which, by the way, is the second longest make the playoff streak to the San Antonio Spurs, who just wipe everybody out in that category. But when they make the playoffs, does anybody in Atlanta really give them a shot to go very far in the club? No. So that's the issue here is they're pretty good. I think they're going to be pretty good this year, by the way. So, I'm interested.
Wait, so you're saying that it doesn't matter?
Okay, but maybe they're not good enough
for people to buy the
remember,
tickets.
it's default good in the Eastern Conference, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Let me crystallize something, and I want to preface my comments by saying that I'm not impugning anybody's integrity. I'm not attacking anyone personally, and I'm going to try to avoid mentioning names here. But we need to point this out.
Okay.
Number one, when you look at the Atlanta Hawks, clearly it's a transplanted city, so you have people that aren't necessarily loyal to the franchise.
They didn't grow up loyal to the franchise.
Exactly. They're from New York, Detroit, L.A., all over the place.
Which is why when Kobe plays there,
that's why they flock.
Okay.
You know, and Jordan came, they flocked, and Derrick Rose and the boys. It's not they need a star for that franchise more so than any other team.
That's a good point. They have not had a big superstar
since Dominique Wilkins. Okay, so that's number one. But let's keep this in mind too. Even though Dominique is a front office executive, the belief is he doesn't have but so much power. Let's keep that in mind. Arthur Trish, a well-known PR guy, widely respected throughout the league. I mean, when you talked about Atlanta, you knew Arthur Trish almost as well as you knew the players.
I've known him from the early 80s.
He was fired by Danny Ferry. Danny Ferry wanted his own guy.
I agree.
You have Mike Woodson, who guided them to the playoffs, rebuilt the franchise, guided them to 3 consecutive playoff appearances, got fired after a 53-win season and a berth to the semifinals in the Eastern
Not by
Conference.
Danny Ferry, by Rick Sun.
By Rick Sun. That was by Rick Sun. What I'm saying to you is that when you see an email like this come out, and then we're hearing about how far this may stretch and how long this may have been going on, and then you see, for lack of a better phraseology, black bodies falling by the wayside.
Okay.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you're looking at the Atlanta Hawks and you're like,
okay,
what's going on down there? Particularly when your fan base, okay, like he said, was 70% back. When I went to the Phillips Arena, when Mike Woodson was coaching, and they were in the playoff series against Miami one year.
I remember.
You know, Chicago. I mean, that place was bananas.
Yeah.
It was packed. You understand? It was a show up in there. Now, I'm not saying it was that way for regular season games because I wasn't down there that much during the regular season games. And I can tell you, there's some black folks with some money in Atlanta.
There are a lot of black folks with money in Atlanta. A lot.
But in fairness to Levinson and the Hawks,
Yep.
if folks are buying tickets but not season tickets, and the subject was building your season ticket,
Okay.
and the NBA, according to Levinson, is saying that the targeted primary demo is 35 to 55-year-old white males, then is he beyond the pale to speculate as to what's costing him this money with that demo? That's where we get tricky here. Because, see, for me with Donald Sterling, it was clear cut. If Levinson is doing an email and he's highlighting and explaining, this is why I think we're not making the kind of money. It's egregious, it's stupid. He deserves to be called on the carpet for it.
I got it.
But at the same time, is it the kind of offense that would make you have to give up ownership?
Wait, time out. So are you saying it's more business-minded, simple and dumb, what he said?
But it was more business-minded.
But it was more business-minded.
It was more business-minded.
As opposed to him being
That's right.
a racist.
And it needs to be said from somebody like me who is a black man. See, we have to be careful as black folks. We got to make sure everybody and everything ain't racist. Some things are just ignorant and stupid and foolish.
All right.
And some things are racist. Now, some of the language in here may be a bit uncomfortable and it was ridiculous, but at the same time, if you're discussing business and you think this is what's costing you money and you highlight it in the email, as stupid and as egregious as that is entirely different than what Donald Sterling did.
So too black isn't racist to you. It's just dumb.
It's just dumb.
Okay, and I'm going to ask this question one more time.
It's just dumb.
Why in Atlanta, Georgia, does your target demo need to be 35 to 55-year-old white men?
If, again, the answer to that would be, are black folks buying season tickets?
Okay.
See, season tickets are season tickets, not a 10-game package, not a 4-game package. If you're talking about, if the subject is about the season ticket base, and according to Levinson, they're saying scour the league, and the primary demo is 35 to 55-year-old white males. All I'm saying is, before we go any further, can we investigate whether or not that's accurate? Because if it is accurate, and the businessman is saying, well, clearly that's the audience that we've got to attract because that's where the money's at.
Okay.
All right.
Ooh.
But why do you keep asking that question?
Because
what
I just
are you
think
getting at?
in Atlanta, Georgia, when you told me 54% African American,
Yes.
Right.
It has such an affluent segment of the African American
Huge.
community that you maybe you're targeting the wrong.
Maybe you're going after the wrong audience.
I totally agree.
Okay.
But if what he said is factually correct, then we got a problem.
Okay.
We leave it there. To be discussed another day, another time, and more information is available.